Bernie Bro here. I know it's a little late, but I want to talk about something that crosses my mind. And if I get triggered or annoyed, it is with this political paradigm that's been drudged up by conservatives of every type you can imagine. Standard establishment, Republicans, neoconservatives, evangelicals or the Christian right, paleoconservatives, and even some libertarians, and even people who are paleoconservative, between paleoconservative and maybe alt right, what they call alt right. I won't include the alt right on this because I'm trying to be magnanimous and not trying to sit there and single out every conservative as the epitome of evil. But am doing this commentary because I get annoyed by those same people who basically denounce anyone to the left of Ted Cruz as the epitome of evil and put a broad brush on the entire left. And what I mean by that, they come up and they found a very clever way to do this, and they have this dumb political paradigm where on the right, anarchy, chaos, meaning no government on the right. Then as you shift over here is a standard republic, rule of law. Then the next level is more like what they consider democracy. Then it goes to socialism and Nazism, and they're trying to make it sound like socialism, Nazism, communism are all on the left, and they're all for the same thing. And it's just lazy and partisan vomit. Just to have political discourse. And I may have a little bit of sympathy for those right wing people in the sense that I get annoyed when the left labels anybody who disagrees with them as a racist scumbag, piece of shit, or what have you. And it's a little annoying. I mean, if you don't believe in universal health care, it doesn't make you a douchebag. Makes you wrong. I mean, if you don't like unions, makes you wrong. Then it might not necessarily make you evil. You have a political position I disagree with. But when it comes to the right, if you disagree with them, you are like the biggest scum of the earth that you can imagine. And actually, here's where I will say both sides do this shit. And both sides do this shit. And then there are those on both sides that don't. And for those that don't, whether you're on the left or on the right, I don't have a beef with either of you. The ones who wants to be truthfully civil. And I don't mean decorum police civil, because that's disingenuous and phony, and I make fun of that too. But I'm talking about this whole thing that the right has been so annoyed and irritated, sometimes justifiably irritated by being called a racist every step of the way, that they decide to fight back, and they decide that everything that's on the left, or anything that they disagree with, dislike, just totally object to, it's all on the left. It is all absolutely on the left. And it's evil to be that way. And they will denounce you. And they will act like you're the biggest piece of scum that's ever existed. And there's just some people you just can't communicate with. And I mean, when I hear, for example, when I take my position on universal health care, or take my position on economic, a regulatory state to make sure that the free enterprise system do not abuse their consumers, abuse workers. I mean, and all of a sudden they switch it around. Oh, that's what the Nazis did. That's what the Nazis did. And and they're pointing fingers at people who have fought against racism, aggressively fought against racism, and things like well, the Democrats, the KKK is the party of the Democrats. Never mind that those that support around the Confederate flag in 2020 are more likely going to be Republicans. And their Southern strategy is basically the Republicans trying to appeal to segregationists, and they kind of soften the thing from saying the N word, N word, N word. You know what that N word is, to saying busing. Then it became states' rights. Then it became federal government, and so that's kind of how they did it. And the thing about it is that today's Republican conservative movement is is worse than standard Republican conservatism uh, prior to 1964, because um, just as it was said a while back on the Michael Brooks show, Jesse Helms created the modern Republican Party. Basically, and looking back at Jesse Helms was a Democrat. He was a segregationist Democrat. But being a segregationist Democrat, he was not like other segregationists that kind of vaguely supported New Deal economic populism. He basically supported um, economic policies that mirrors that of U.S. Senator Robert Taft of Ohio. The difference between Senator Robert Taft of Ohio at the time and Jesse Helms, who was a Democrat that that was working with the banking industry in the Raleigh area in the 1950s, also working with segregationists as part of his political activities, is that Robert Taft, while I despise Robert Taft for coming up with the Taft-Hartley Act of 1947, which pretty much handcuffed unions in the United States, Robert Taft was on racial matters very progressive and favored civil rights and was a strong supporter of civil rights. This was at a time when you could have found Republicans that were favorable to civil rights, and and many Democrats in the South were just horrendous on the issue. But eventually, the people like Jesse Helms came into the Republican Party, and Jesse Helms basically, and many of his supporters basically created the what is politically defined as the modern Republican Party, which is worse than it's worse than the segregationists in the '60s, and it's worse than the Robert Taft era Republicans, because they took the worst of the economic politics of Robert Taft, kept that, but incorporated the Jim Crowism that basically flushed the New Deal populism down the drain. So today's right wing, broadly speaking, is a combination of Robert Taft economics and the Jesse Helms segregationism that were once Jim Crow Democrats. So yesterday Dixiecrats are today's hardcore right wing Republicans. And the point I'm trying to make is that while I'm not sitting there saying that all Republicans in 2020 are the epitome of evil, I could never vote for a Republican. As much as I shit on the Democrats, believe me, if you listen to this channel long enough, you know that I have a lot of choice words for the Democrats, and especially the Democrats after Bill and Hillary Clinton took over the party back in the late '80s and turned it into the toilet bowl that it is today. There might be a chance that with the insurgent Bernie Sanders campaign in 2016 and 2020, that the Democrats can become finally a Labor Party. I don't know. I don't know, since Bernie Sanders is likely not to run again. I don't know how active he's going to be after this election. Don't know if the momentum will be gone. I'm keeping my options open as a leftist. But this paradigm that they come up with is to throw it all at the entire left, broad brush the entire left. And I call bullshit on the left when they do it to the right too. Um, and the latest, it's been kind of settled for many decades that Nazism, fascism, was the hard right, the authoritarian and racist right, not mainstream center right, not mainstream conservatism. And I'm going to include ultra conservatism in the camp of mainstream conservatism, that they're not, broadly speaking, racist, or race is not a concern for them. And by the same token, just because if you're on the left and you want health care for everybody, or you want the workplace unionized, or you want a strong safety net, or you want a good environment, all of a sudden that makes you the killing fields, makes you like Pol Pot, makes you like Venezuela, or makes you like Hitler. And that whole Nazism and socialism are the same. Now, while which that's a backdoor way of that's a backdoor anti-Semitic slur by the right, because whatever my audience may think of the state of Israel in 2020, historically speaking, and this is where on the issue that the left and the right in 2020 go into a mental meltdown when I tell them the historical truth. Israel was created as a socialist state in 1948. So to say that Nazism and socialism are one and the same is pretty much an insult to the Jewish socialists and Jewish communist Zionists, uh, known more commonly today as labor Zionism, that created the country in the first place. You're basically saying they were the same as Hitler. I'm talking about the right, and to the whole idea of Germany itself with regard to what was going on. The left in Germany were in a concentration camp with the Jews. See, the social democrats, the communists, the anarchists, the Trotskyites were all put into concentration camps, and they were in the death camps, suffering along with the Jews, the gypsies, the gays and lesbians, uh, uh, the mentally and physically impaired, the Slavic minorities, Jehovah Witnesses, very, and even various people who were not, ideologically driven, and they were mainstream Germans that did not approve of Hitler. They were all in the concentration camps. And while Nazism is also not mainstream center right conservatism, if you were a well behaved conservative capitalist in Germany, Hitler didn't fuck with you. And and you have to understand that the main opposition to Hitler, the big main opposition to Hitler, was the Social Democratic Party of Germany. And the enabling act of, what was it, 1933, 1934, turn it into a totalitarian state. But Hindenburg, who was a Christian Democrat, handed the power to Hitler in 1933. So, and he did it reluctantly, and he did not do it supporting Hitler. It was a glitch within the parliamentary system in the Reichstag that handed the powers over to Hitler. And then the rest, of course, is history. But you have to understand that when the German Workers' Party was founded and eventually became the National Socialist German Workers' Party, that prior to Hitler coming into power, they were fighting in the streets against the communists. And I explained this to these conservatives. And some of them will be like, oh, you have to understand, it was all a big misunderstanding. They were really for the same thing. Well, the communists and the Nazis were for the same thing, and the center left Social Democrats in the Weimar Republic were all for the same things. Are y'all shitting me? Really? It's lazy thinking. It's lazy. It's partisan. And I feel like IQ points are pretty much subtracted. And I feel less intellectual after hearing that. It's just so horrible. But I'm going to settle this. Nazism was far right, totalitarian, authoritarian, but it was on the right. And communism is far left and authoritarian. Now, communism and Nazism are the same as far as being both totalitarian, but their visions are different. Socialism or social democracy, however, is just democratic capitalism with a sense of compassion or a conscience, which coexists in free society along with mainstream conservatives and mainstream liberals. How hard is that to kind of concept? But we have people that wants to rewrite history and rewrite it in a way that suits a narrative instead of being objective about it. I am objective. I am ideological, and to a degree, I am partisan, being a social democrat myself, a moderate socialist, or if you want to get specific, a democratic socialist. Um, but being that I am a classical economic European style socialist, I am American enough that the social liberalism that I advocate has a heavy libertarian bent to it. This is why I support radical free speech. And so true socialists do support radical free speech. And I'm talking about in the American tradition. Never mind Europe and other countries where freedom of speech is rejected by pretty much the left and the right. That doesn't count because in places like Europe, they all support censorship to one degree or another. It's part of their culture. But here in America, it's a little bit different, and in a good way. And if there's one thing that the United States got pretty much right, is that we have pretty solid free speech laws to protect in our Constitution, protecting our First Amendment rights. Our First Amendment rights is a wonderful thing, and I would never want to tamper with it in any way. If there's one problem I have with free speech here in the United States, is that it might not be free enough by my standards. I am for radical free speech, and some on the left today have gotten on this censorship bandwagon, and it is to their detriment when they do. I have warned many on the left. Still, most of us on the left do support it. I don't care what narrative. I don't care how Fox News and Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity spin it, because in their own way, Fox News, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity silence free speech themselves. We have a lot of neocons in Congress that wants to criminalize the BDS movement. I don't support BDS, but I don't think it should be criminalized. We got people in our Congress that wants to criminalize Antifa and declare it a terrorist organization. I don't support every aspect of Antifa, but you know what? Antifa killed zero people. Zero people died from Antifa. The worst thing you can say about Antifa is they can be occasionally unpleasant, and sometimes they do rough up some people. You compare that to the Klan or the neo-Nazi groups that have actually murdered people, shot people in cold blood, blew up buildings. I don't like white nationalists, but as I said, I mean, if they're not, if individuals who are white nationalists not committing any violence and they want them to be obnoxious and talk about their shitty politics, their free speech right should be protected, but they should not have a right to inflict harm on people, and that's what it comes right down to. I mean, I want a society where you can advocate whatever political position, as ridiculous or as evil as it can be, without getting in trouble, as long as you're not harming anyone. But I'm kind of going all over the place with this. But I just want to clarify what I mean by this political paradigm that the right is trying to bestow upon us. The traditional compass that has an authoritarian and libertarian side, the authoritarian on the top, libertarian on the bottom, a left and a right, and I usually fill out those questionnaires, and I'm usually on the green side, meaning that I'm on the left and I'm on the libertarian side of the compass. And I think that's probably the most accurate compass around, because as I said, it's on the left and on the right. I think that you're the good guy if you're on the libertarian side, bottom spectrum, on the left or on the right. Although I am more partial toward the left side because that's naturally where I gravitate. I don't like authoritarianism on the left and the right, exists on the left and the right. I support people who support freedom on the left and the right, and would consider such people as allies, whether they're on the left or the right. But anyhow, this commentary's gone on long enough. I just wanted to clear that. And what if you don't see a link right away? I will put a link in the bottom for the paradigm that I'm talking about. I'm Bernie Bro. If you like this commentary, feel free to press like, comment, um, subscribe, share, and tell people about this channel. I'm going to bed. Y'all have a great night.